Well, fast out on music today. Keith Engle here for TGI Sports Talks MLB update. How's everybody doing today? There's our music. Good to have you with us. It's been a couple weeks since we did an update. Last week we had our return to the one-on-one interviews, one-on-one with Keith Engle on TGI Sports Talk. We had to put it into the MLB update spot to make it work for Marty Cordova, and we thank him again. And we've got some good guests coming up on Fridays, 9 a.m. going forward. Right now, so you know, 426, Tim Worley, former Georgia Bulldog and Steeler running back, Buddy Biancalana on the 3rd of May. Shortstop, infielder, utility infielder, mostly shortstop, as I remember, with the Kansas City Royals, an important cog of their 1985 World Series winning team. Brian Holloway, an important member of the New England Patriots in the middle of the 80s, several-time Pro Bowler, All-Pro, helped lead that team to the Super Bowl against the Bears, which I'd rather forget that Sunday. Billy Martin Jr. on the 17th of May, and then Kevin Minch, former Ranger, on the 24th. And then we'll have some announcements coming soon on some others. We want to welcome everybody today watching on TGI Sports Talk on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, as we should be calling it, I suppose, and also Northeast Streaming Sports Roku channel. We're also on Northeast Streaming Sports YouTube feed. Quick note there. Anybody who does follow us or any of the other shows on Northeast Streaming Sports, Facebook, in their extreme wisdom, we know how wonderful they are. They have taken down the Northeast Streaming Sports Facebook page with no explanation. They did it to my show 3 years ago, whenever it was, for about 6 weeks, I want to say, maybe 2 months, and I had to go through my personal page and the other outlets. You can still catch any Northeast Streaming Sports stuff on YouTube. I think Twitter, but YouTube for sure. And of course on the Roku app, which just go to their Roku channel. Just go to the Roku app and download Northeast Streaming Sports app channel. I'll get this straight. And also welcome everybody on Let's Talk Sports on their YouTube feed today. Quick shout out to Ralph Williams at RW Media. Ralph does some great stuff there in Pittsburgh. I think Ralph had a little incident today, too, so we hope Ralph's all right. Maybe he'll pop in here today, and our best wishes with him. Not sure exactly what happened with him, but maybe we'll have more information. But Ralph is on WBVP radio from 4 to 6 every Tuesday with the Sports Corner with Smokin' Jim Frazier, plus a bunch of other stuff. If you go to RW Media, you're going to see lots of great content. Thumbs up, DDH, and... we'll start. We got to start with a couple, and we'll probably talk about this because if some people come on, they may talk about this. But we had a tough week in Major League Baseball for fans of a certain age. Lost 3 really, I think, important members of a certain generation, maybe multiple generations. Could we go back to great Carl Erskine? Great. I mean, Carl Erskine wasn't Sonny Koufax. We know that. But Carl Erskine was a very accomplished Major League pitcher with the Brooklyn Dodgers. And did he ever get to play with let me see something. Did he ever get to play in L.A.? I don't think he did. He did play 2 years in L.A. But Carl Erskine was an accomplished pitcher on some of those teams, won as many as 20 games. In 1953 was top 10 MVP that year, was an all-star another year. So we lost him, I believe, at 90. How old was Carl? Carl was 97. God bless him. I'll sign up for that right now, right this minute. But by all accounts, Carl was a great guy, and our thoughts and prayers go out to his family and his friends. Also lost Kenny Holtzman, pitcher in the 70s. I think an underrated pitcher in the 70s as well. Won 20 games once, but won over 17 games, I want to say, 5 or 6 times maybe. 2 no-hitters with the Cubs. Pitched also with the A's, as we know, with those great world champion teams, the Orioles, and came to the Yankees, and Billy Martin buried him. which maybe we'll talk to Billy Jr. about in a few weeks. And then finished up again with the Cubs after starting with the Cubs. He passed away at age, what was his age here? Just 78 years old. Not old, boys and girls. Not for me anymore. And then, of course, we lost Whitey Herzog. Really good manager with the Royals, with the Cardinals. Helped build those Mets, the Miracle Mets, as part of their organization. Also managed the Angels, I think, for a short time. Maybe the Rangers. I have it right in front of me. Why not just look? Maybe not the Angels, now that I think about it. Kansas City Royals, St. Louis. I thought he managed California in 1974. I know he's replaced by Dick Williams. Won one World Series, went to another. Great, I like Whitey. But if Whitey's in with one World Series, how's Lou Piniella, who's got 600 more wins, I think, than Whitey, and a World Series victory not in the Hall of Fame? It's one of those questions. But we do honor the great Whitey Herzog today. And as all three, Kenny Holtzman, Whitey Herzog, and Carl Erskine, our thoughts and prayers go to their family and friends, and we thank them for the memories. Whitey's Royals had was a great rival with the Yankees in the mid to late 70s. Into 1980, actually. Yankees won over 100 games and got swept by the Royals. Finally got past the Yankees in the playoffs, and Dick Howser ends up leaving after 1 year at the Yankees helm. So a lot of intertwining of legacies with Whitey and the Yankees. Also with the Mets, obviously, when he was with the Cardinals, they had some great battles as the Mets were coming of age in the mid 80s. So again, as I get older, we talk more and more about these things. Anyway, we got a bunch of comments here to get started. So let's see who's here with us and get who what they saying. Danny Fuller, good afternoon. It is I'm sure it's beautiful out there in LA or Southern California. A little dreary here in upstate New York. Not terribly warm. What is it? It's 60, which isn't terrible for the middle of April. It's a little better. No rain so far today. Been a very dreary kind of week. So, well, Rick Sherlock, good afternoon. I'm feeling okay. A little sore. First round of a few things I've got to get done dental wise, and it's an expensive road. I can tell you that. It hurts more than my my mouth. Rick, are you here? Who's Rick? How you doing, Danny? Again, good afternoon to Drew Ehrlich. Good to have you with us. Drew and Danny and Chris and Rick, I think, all recognized as top followers of TGI Sports Talk. It's a great honor, guys. Drew, I know you feel like the bar is set terribly high, but hey, 2,000 followers out there that you beat out. I'm just kidding. Rick, you guys are killing me. Danny and Rick. What's going on here with you guys? Good grief. Good evening. Good afternoon. Drew Ehrlich, Northeast must not have recognized her face. There you go. Drew's out ahead of me on that. When Facebook sends me some stuff, I'll put it up because it's complimenting you guys. And look, I've got my troubles with Facebook, right? But mostly because they're run by a bunch of frickin' Nazis. But they don't communicate with you at all. But they've helped grow my show, and I really can't get upset. I have not learned, maybe just for lack of effort, how to get the YouTube views the way I do on Facebook. These shows, once I get through showing them to all sharing them, and they get viewed, I mean, there's thousands of views for shows. You may only see a few hundred on this outlet, a few hundred on this outlet, and Twitter's growing crazy. YouTube, I just, without paying money, which I am trying to organically grow this show, not pay for advertising, which I could do and artificially bump up the viewership. Don't want to do that. So Facebook, I do run them down, but why Northeastern Sports is gone is a mystery to everybody, just like it was a mystery to me when they had taken my my page on my show. Well, they might as well. They tried to take my show down, and I still to this day don't know why. So, and I went scorched earth on them pretty good. He was a Dodger. We thought Carlos said, no, I wondered if he got out to LA. That's all. I knew he was a Dodger. He was a Dodger his whole career. I believe if we're talking about Carl Erskine, I was just wondering if he got out to LA because the Dodgers did exist, Danny, before they got to LA. Excuse my sarcasm. I don't mean to sound sarcastic. East Coast missed. Brooklyn still misses the Dodgers, by the way. Danny, we spend more time saying hello here than we do anything. Nobody has a problem with Whitey Ball. In what regard? I liked Whitey Ball. Old-fashioned, moving base runners, everybody moving at the same time, played great defense, those teams. So I'm not sure. And I see a question mark. So I'm asking. I think you're asking if any of us have a problem with Whitey Ball. Whitey was a great manager. Whitey deserves the honors that he's gotten. I think he was an unseen, unsung hero of the '69 Mets and the '73 Mets. He had built a lot of those that minor league system for the Mets, and that produced a lot of great players that came of age in 1969. Then he got off to a bit of a rocky start managing. I don't know why I thought he managed the Rangers. I could have swore he was there before Billy was. Kansas City, then he went right to St. Louis. Anyway, it was a lot of fun. We beat the snot out of them 3 times in the 70s, 76, 77, 78. I wouldn't say beat the snot out of them. We won. That's all that matters. Then they got their revenge with Brett killing Gossage in Yankee Stadium in '80. But Whitey was Whitey, the White Rat. But again, I look at it. I don't know what the Hall of Fame looks at when they look at people who are going to be inducted. I mean, again, how is Whitey Herzog in and Lou Pinella's not in? I just finished reading Lou Pinella's autobiography. And I don't think it's that old. See if I can give you the name. I think it's simply Lou. I think I just finished the book. You'd think I'd know it. Lou. And if you're a Yankee fan, if you're a baseball fan in general, read this book. It was really a great read. I read it on Kindle, and it was a great read. And actually, Lou agrees with a lot of what I have espoused about pitching today and injuries and the way the game's approached in general. Sabermetrics, all the nonsensical. By the way, sorry to those sabermetric guys out there, but Lou rips war worse than I ever could. Completely fabricated. I won't get into that right now. Not completely fabricated, but it takes a lot. You have to take a lot of assumptions into play to make this formula work. And everybody's got their own formula. So anyway, I was happy to read that Lou is on the same page as me, but probably not a surprise because, he's older than me, but we come from a similar generation. But anyway, how is Lou not considered he is considered. Why is he not in the Hall of Fame if Whitey is? That's all. No biggie. Greetings to JB at the Back It Up Binge podcast. Great to have JB with us. He's missed the Hall of Fame by a few. I think maybe the last time by one vote. I think when Jim Leland got in, which was this year, I think, right? I know at the time he wrote this book, he had just missed out. I think trying to think who got in ahead of him that year, manager wise. Gosh, I can't remember now. At the time this book was written, which was a few years ago, but not that many. It is just terrible too, Danny. I mean, Lou is a great baseball man. He's one of, I think, 3 players. I think there's 3. I know 2 for sure. They got 1,500 hits in the majors and won games. Lou's one of them. Joe Torre's another. And, oh, God, the other one is escaping me at the moment, too. So, anyway. JB, he prefers that's the old Orioles way, right? And that's kind of, to be honest with you, in a way, JB, Earl Weaver was ahead of his time because Earl Weaver wouldn't bunt. He wouldn't give up outs, which, again, the sabermetrics will tell you now, never give up an out. But pitching, defense, and timely hitting, including 3-run homers, are what wins. Earl Weaver's another one. Earl Weaver's in the Hall of Fame. Won 1 World Series. Lost how many? Great teams, and he should be in the Hall of Fame. Don't get me wrong. Earl Weaver definitely belongs in the Hall of Fame. In a way, he kind of he helped usher in maybe this new age a little bit with that philosophy, never bunt. There are times you need to bunt. But Lou is certainly a proponent of the bunt and small ball. He said the biggest influence in his career, the 2 of the biggest influence in his career, was Billy Martin, number 1, and George Steinbrenner, who gave him his chance. If it wasn't for George, he said he probably never would have managed. Danny, drawing a blank just like me. Chris, seen a few teams that could use a little thump off the bench. Luke Vogt at home just peeling potatoes. We've been there with the Yankees. I don't need to see more of Luke Vogt. He was a flash. He had his moment in the sun. And believe me, if he could play, Chris, I think he'd be somewhere. The Yankees could use some thump. Yankees have come back to earth a little bit, still lead the East. The Orioles have gotten hot, though. Braves have gotten hot. The Mets have gotten hot. The Phils have gotten hot. The Red Sox are back kind of where we thought they'd be. The White Sox, awful. Who else is playing well? Marlins are playing well, or not playing well, I should say. Rockies are not playing well. How about the Marlins send their number 1 pitcher, basically? Not that they're not loaded with pitchers, to the minors. What message does that send your fans and the rest of your team? I understand. They want to manage his innings. You know, they've got a lot of pitching talent, but it doesn't send a great message. God. Yank me's, I can't really say that like that, Drew. My God, you'll get me banned from Facebook. Have slowed down a tad. Baby Orioles are on the up to catch them. The Orioles are playing very well. You know what? I was on a couple Orioles sites recently because I was responding to some comments to the Marty Cordova interview. And I was amazed at the number of derogatory comments about Holiday. He's only been up for a week, guys. Give him a break. He got off to a bit of a rough start. Don't know where he is right now. We can take a look at it. But they're calling him overrated and another. This farm system's been churning out talent for the last few years. And they'd be able to turn some of that talent that they didn't use for their own success on the field into Corbin Burns. But the guy's up a week and guys are ripping him, man. Even I don't do that. Steve Orpello up there in Perth, New York. Good evening. Oh, geez. Good afternoon. Sorry. Let me not rush the day ahead. Good to have you with us, Steve. As always, my friend. Drew, Twins and Astros. Listen, the Astros might be the biggest disappointment and surprise in my mind of anybody as far as the bad teams go. Hader suppressing Presley hasn't worked out for either. Hader got off to a horrible start, if you remember, 2 years ago, too. Was it 2 years ago? Was it 2 years ago that he got traded to San Diego? It wasn't last year, was it? Last summer's a bit of a blur with moving and everything else, but he got off to a horrendous start with the Brewers the year he got traded to the Padres, and then returned into his old self after a couple of rough starts, rough outings, I should say. Twins, people, again, Rocco Baldelli's had some great success, I think, with these Twins teams, and the fans are calling for his head. I at least wait, for Aaron Boone to fail in the playoffs 6 times, 5 times, whatever the number is now, before I start calling for his head. That's not true. I've been calling for his head for a couple of years, but he failed more than once. Rocco's already getting grief. Partly, that's a great point too. With the new rules of baseball, you get some. You still get some antics, right? Aaron Boone has had a few of his own. Trying to think of other guys. I've seen a few other guys, but not like you used to, because you really can't come out and argue balls and strikes, right? With replay, you can ask for replay, but then you can't argue. So, they're not supposed to come out of the dugout. I remember when they put replay in, they weren't supposed to come out of the dugout to argue at all. And I thought that was really going to hurt the game. Because guys like Lou Piniella, that's how they would fire up their team. Billy, the same way. They go out and just get kicked out. Piniella talks about his book. He'd get out there and tell an umpire that I really don't disagree with the call, but you got to throw me out of this game, and I'm going to make a fool of myself. Well, you do it because I need to fire this team up. But again, you want to robotize the game and take out human antics, human frailties, depending on what we're talking about. And I do want to pick an apology, and I don't know that he'll see it, but oh gosh, I was ripping Angel Hernandez a lot the last couple of weeks, and listen, I don't think not without reason. Angel, and we all know, is horrible, and one of the great groups that I belong to is America's Favorite Pastime, run by Greg Rawlings. And there's a lot of players, and I share the show to them. There's a lot of players, a lot of umpires in that group. And one of them, or a few of them, I shouldn't say, were upset, or should say, they were upset about having to defend his job and his profession, I should say. Dale Scott, who was a great umpire in my mind. And I was an interview that I did here a few years back when he was promoting his first book of The Umpire Is Out. And Dale's a great interview. I had a lot of fun with him. I have a lot of respect for the job that he did. And I know I posted a couple shows myself with that had a lot of derogatory comments about Angel Hernandez specifically. Not umpires in general. I think umpires in general do a really good job. I've advocated get rid of replay because I think that umpires do a really good job. If they make a mistake, they make a mistake. But I want to apologize to Dale Scott and any of the other umpires in America's Pastime, baseball, America's Pastime, again, run by the great Greg Rawlings, who allowed me to share there. And I get a lot of people who have commented on the shows, have followed the show. And I in no way was trying to disparage umpires in general myself. And I know that, and Dale dropped out of the group, I believe. And Greg was interviewing him on his podcast, I think just the other night. And again, I'm not saying he dropped out because of me, but there was a lot of bashing going on, not just of Angel Hernandez, but also umpires in general. And he said he was tired of having to defend his profession, which I understand. But I want to make it clear, if Dale sees this, and I send him a note, actually, myself, because I do communicate back and forth with him now and again, that if any part of his decision to leave that group was based on anything I had to say, because I was very vocal about Angel. And I mean, the worst thing I said was he's lucky he's got the Well, I did say, I don't know why the umpires back him. They got a strong union. But again, I didn't mean anything disparaging towards umpires as a whole. I think they do a very good job as a rule, with a very difficult job. Drew talks about Willie McGee was the epitome of Herzog's philosophy. That entire team, in fact, it's funny. We talked about Buddy Biancalana is going to be on in a few weeks. That World Series in '85 that the Cardinals lost, they were a better team. They had guys like Willie McGee and Tommy Herr and Pendleton, guys who just put the ball in play. And they lost. And they were playing in '82, too, a lot of those guys. Ken Oberkfell. I mean, I bet you they didn't hit 100 home runs, that team. Did they? Can I find out? In '82, the year they won the World Series, I'll bet you they didn't hit 100 home runs. Can I tell? Here we go. 67 home runs. World Series champion. How much has the game changed? 67. The year they went in '85. Excuse me. I love looking back at these numbers. They might have hit 100. I don't know. 87. No. Yeah, 87 home runs. That team had Jack Clark on it. Anyway. The Guardians are small ballers and in first place. Guardians playing much better than I thought. Ed and Clubbus, thanks for joining us. Ed did confirm the other night during the sports huddle that Twitter comments do show up here. At least his did. So I thank you for that confirmation. And look at the Guardians are playing well. First year manager, Vaught, and on any level. He's only 2 years away removed from playing. I still think they're going to be a little thin in pitching, but they got one of the great hitters, fielders, leaders in that clubhouse in Ramirez. So again, I like some of what that team has, but I just feel like they're a few players short, Ed. I'm not sure. Again, so it's a long haul from here to October. So he's caught up to you, Keith. Former Blue Jay sensation Frank Viola turned 64 today. Happy birthday to Frank Viola. That's some good news. We'll take a look at the standings here in a little bit, guys. We'll look at and talk a little bit about each one of these teams. There's into these here, up NL East, all on hot streaks. You know, I was thinking about this, and the Mets have really turned it around. Maybe because they were playing the Pirates. But they've won like 8 out of 10 after a horrendous start. They barely avoided their worst start of all time. As far as their winless streak at the beginning of the season. So they've come back nicely. Atlanta, we know. Philadelphia, I think we know. We'll dive into the standings a little bit in just a second. I'm thinking mess is the Mets get ready. They are a mess. That's a certainly not a typo on Drew's part. That is the term he will use for the Mets all the time. Armando Galarraga would like that Jim Joyce era that they had a review. I personally love the reviews. I know we talked about this before, and it's all personal taste. To me, I am okay with human error. And if we only put replay in to take away the egregious mistakes that are made, right? Jim Joyce being one of them. Because Galarraga, I mean, even if he picked, here's the thing. I've said this before, too, as part of my defense of human errors should be allowed as part of the game. I talked about the '85 World Series. If it wasn't for Don Denkinger blowing the call in the final out for the Cardinals in Game 6, and the Royals came back and won Game 6 and won Game 7, we wouldn't remember that '85 World Series at all. It'd be lost to, again, some people would remember, but it would have just popped your mind for any reason at all that you can think of? No. Maybe because Whitey would have had 2 World Series. Maybe. Even Armando Galarraga, Armando, I don't know if it's Armando or Armando right off the top of my head, but think about this. I know only X amount of guys have ever pitched perfect games in the major leagues. Who can name them all? He would have faded into obscurity, total obscurity, most likely, because he didn't do a whole lot in his career other than that moment. And I get the argument that it was taken away from him. But I would put up an argument that if Jim Joyce had called the runner out, as he should have, because that was worse than the 85 call, we would never even talk about Armando Galarraga or Jim Joyce, for that matter. They'd be lost to the footnotes of history. But now we still talk about those moments because of human error. I know we want to get the calls right. I get that. But at what cost? Because, again, even if it was just to be able to eliminate those egregious errors, it's been bastardized to become something it never was meant to be. If I slide into second and a guy holds the glove on me and my hand or my foot comes off the base for a split second, I'm out? Come on. That's not what the rule was meant for. So anyway, this is why I will remain an opponent to instant replay, pretty much in all sports. I don't know that we said he was on the Blue Jays, did we? Did Chris say that? Oh, former Blue Jays sensation, Frank Viola. No, I didn't catch that part. My bad. He played with the Twins, yes. The Mets, yes. And the Red Sox. Did he play elsewhere? Yeah, just for hell of it. Let me look. I shouldn't. I'm really not doubting you, Drew. But I'll tell you what. Frank Viola is another guy who was a really good pitcher. Really good big game pitcher, especially with the Twins. Actually pitched with Cincinnati as well. 3 games with Cincinnati in 1995 and Toronto Blue Jay. I stand corrected. 1996, 6 games and a 7.71 ERA. I'm sure that Frank would like to forget those moments. So anyway, my apologies, Chris. I should have known you knew what you're talking about. Money pitcher too, by the way. Money pitcher. Very underrated, I think. Another guy I think is underrated. Anyway. Kind of I would say, and I guess he's guys in Holtzman. I was going to say it was kind of Holtzman-like, but he struck out more guys than Kenny Holtzman did. Hold on, guys. I got to check something here. I don't know what that is. Good grief. Oh, leave me alone. Work. What do you got here? Bo Crouch. Catch out Bo's stuff on Northeast Streaming Sports. Bo's all over the place. Every day he's on. Bo knows football. But don't confuse him with the other Bo, though, I was told. Angel Hernandez may single-handedly bring in replay and AI to strike zones. It's a good point. Again, I don't want to get myself in trouble again with my good friend Dale Scott. But Angel Hernandez is just awful. And you know what? What I said to Dale was he gives the rest of you a bad name. So, and you can tell the umpires union, which has always been a pretty strong union, hasn't lost any of its juice. I can tell you that. Drew says Viola and Saberhagen were always linked in his mind. Why did they? Well, they were on some bad Met teams together, right? Weren't they part of those same Met teams that the best team money, the worst team money could buy? I think it was a book written by Bob Clappish. I think that's a sports writer's name. but they could not get out of their own way. So I wonder if that's what you're thinking of there, Drew. Not sure. And I believe St. John's alumni, if I'm not mistaken. See if I can find that here. Baseball Reference should give me that information, shouldn't it? I don't care about those 91 Mets anymore. St. John's University. He's a Johnny. A Redman. A Redman. Can't say that anymore either. Frankie Viola's son, Frankie Viola, who is indeed Frankie Viola III, tried to rebound as a pitcher with the Blue Jays organization as a knuckleballer. Frankie is now an accomplished sports photographer. I didn't know Frankie Viola had a son who pitched in the majors, or maybe you're still talking about Frankie because you're confusing me a little bit, Chris. He came back in '96. His career hadn't been really had really been on a downturn since '94 with the Red Sox, and then Cincinnati, and then Toronto. Work the 4-letter word. I probably can. I'm not sure which one you're referring to, Danny, but every now and again, we've been known to drop one here. Oh, my God. Anyway, here we are, 3:36. We haven't even taken a look around baseball yet. Let's take a quick look around the major leagues. Talk about the where we are and where we were a few weeks ago. When we last met, the Yankees were on fire, and I wouldn't say they're not on fire. I mean, they've cooled down. They're still 13-6, which, again, they got off to a pretty good start last year. I think they were 12-7 around the same time. Still 6-4 in their last 10. It's not like the bottom's falling out. There are some warning signs with the pitching, but they showed the other day they're never out of a game in that ninth inning against Toronto. So the Orioles, I was not worried. I know Oriole fans were like, "Oh my God, why would you be worried? This team's really good." And they've got some people that will be coming back from injuries as well. 12-6, 7-3 in their last 10, 4 in a row. Tampa Bay, 6-4 in their last 10, 11-9. They just don't go away. You can't kill this team for whatever. No World Series victories to show for it, but they keep finding ways to replace guys. Blue Jays 10-9. You know, again, I'm not in love with the makeup of this team overall. I feel like chemistry is an issue. I feel like leadership in the dugout's an issue. Chris, who's closer to that situation because he's in Toronto, but I know he's not a Toronto fan. I'll let him out himself here. And the Red Sox now will fall into 10-10 after they've gone 3-7 in their last 10. Is there anybody who thought the Red Sox were going to keep that pace up that they were playing? Tyler O'Neill now, who was off to a great start, is on the IL. I know the short-term IL, but still. DL. I promised myself I would not do that. Disabled list. There's nothing wrong with saying it. Say it with me. Disabled list. There. Did that hurt? Is anybody hurt? Sorry, I have these moments. The Guardians, as Ed in Columbus pointed out, in first place in the Central, 13-6. Playing really good baseball. Small ball, as Ed pointed out. The Royals still a surprise. I mean, they're still 7-3 in their last 10. 8-2 away at home, I should say, and 12-7 overall. Will they maintain that pace? Will they be that surprise team? I was flipping a coin, and I between them and the Tigers, I picked the Tigers to make the playoffs. They are 10-9, not playing as well as when we last got together and chatted. The Tigers were my surprise pick. I kept trying to pick the Royals, and I just couldn't see enough that got me excited. Seth Lugo's pitching well, but they had a lot of middle of the road guys that they brought in here. They've got a good young core surrounding Bobby Witt. And they brought in, guys who I thought were journeymen, and maybe that's what they needed to get over the top. The Twins, as I said, in Minnesota, they're all upset. There are a lot of people calling for Rocco Baldelli's head. I mean, relax. You're 19 games into the season. It's not like you're 1-18. And the White Sox are just a mess. The White Sox, 3-15. Hell, I said the A's. The A's are 8-11 for crying out loud. We'll get to them in a second. But I thought 4 teams might have a race to that 120 loss mark. Maybe it'll only be 3, but this team is going to give it a run, I'm pretty sure. Cubbies up 7-1 on the terrible Marlins now. How do the Marlins send out, what's the pitcher's name? Martin? Where are you? I'm probably never going to find it here. We had a story where the Marlins had sent down. Let me just go to their stats, I guess. Probably the best way to find it. Where are the Marlins? I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but we'll come back to the American League West in a second. A pitcher with half their wins. Where the heck is he? Damn it. Isn't that terrible? Oh, not Trevor Rogers. Max Meyer. 17 innings, 11 hits. His whip is under 2. His ERA is just under 1. His ERA is just over 2. He's got 2 of the 4 wins, and they ship him out. Please don't tell me that he had Tommy John surgery and we got to protect him. He's got 17 innings under his belt. And I know they sent him down to find a spot for Edward Cabrera, another great young pitcher on this team, and they're loaded with great starting pitchers. I get it. This kid, he's your best pitcher, and you send him to the minors. What kind of message does that send to your organization, to your fans, to the clubhouse? Are we here to win or not? Did I tell you to relax? I think I told Twins fans to relax. Yes. Lots of decent teams playing 500 ball or a game behind. Makes for good baseball over this weekend. We'll look at the schedule this weekend as well as tonight's starters in a second. To quote from Major League, if you win 2 games in a row, it's called a streak. That's why I'm often looking, Chris, at the last 10 games when I talk about these things. The West, the Rangers, nobody more than 2 games over 500. That's the Rangers. We talked about the Astros being probably the biggest disappointment in baseball at 6-14. Already 5 games behind. 3-7 in their last 10. Not a lot of good signs here to say they're going to turn this around, other than they're a veteran team and they know how to win. The rest of the division is 9-10 or 8-11. The A's are not very good. Sorry. The Angels were a bit of a surprise. Now in their last 10, they're 4-6, so they're back to 9-10. The Mariners are 9-10 after winning 3 in a row. Hey. In the National League East, we already talked about the Marlins. 4-15, they ship out their best pitcher. The Braves 12-5, 7-3. As Drew said earlier, the whole top of the division, the Mets, the Phillies, and the Braves all playing really good baseball right now. 8-2 the Mets are in their last 10, 7-3 for the Phillies and the Braves. The Phillies are being outscored, interestingly enough, for the year, even with that winning record at -6 in run differential. The Mets, after an atrocious start, have got a +14. The Nationals at 8-10, they're hanging in there, playing decent ball early. I do not expect it to continue. The Marlins are the Marlins. I still find this very funny, Rick. Yes, relax, Twins fans. AL West, worst division, top to bottom. Boy. Right today as we speak, I'm going to say yes. But not far ahead of the West, the National League West, to be honest with you. If we look at them just today, I do think this division's better. This won't be the worst division in baseball when all is said and done. I would think the AL Central will still be the worst division in baseball when all is said and done. Chris Jackson Holiday. No, I don't think so. I mean, he showed what he had. And I like this too. I like a couple of reasons they brought him up. He played well in the minors. He's done everything he can do in the minors. There's no reason for him to stay there. And if you're going to bring him to the majors, he's got to play. He gets off to a bit of a slow start. And I mean, I talked about this a little bit at the top. Give him a chance. It's only been a week. I'm not going to say relax because I don't want Rick to think I'm talking like Aaron Rodgers again. I mean, he's had 25 at bats. He'll be okay. Now, 14 strikeouts and 25 at bats is a little concerning. And maybe they ship him back down just to get his feet back under him. But I like the fact that they know that this is a good team and they think Jackson Holiday is ready and they aren't going to wait for some silly time management thing to keep control of him an extra year by leaving him in the minors until whatever date. They know they're good and they're going to go for it. And if Jackson Holiday gives them that best chance, then no, it's not too early. Again, after 25 at bats, sure, it looks too early. Let's wait, see what they do with him. I mean, if he's hitting 167 after 100 at bats, remember something, even in this bad streak for Holiday, the Orioles are playing their best baseball of the season, albeit it's a couple of weeks, I understand. But they're having a really good streak, and if they can maintain winning games and get him straightened out at the same time, it's only going to help them later in the year. Because he's too good. Yeah, I mean, again, I'm on these Orioles sites when I was promoting the Marty Cordova interview, and there are guys saying, another overrated bust. Can we give the kid a chance? What's he, 21? How old is he? Probably not even 21. 20. Give him a chance. He's hitting 040. Sorry, I said 167 earlier. He's not going to hit 040. Again, I think this is what I just said, right? Everyone needs a challenge. Obviously, he had superb plate discipline up there. He is. Sometimes guys need to get their feet under him. He'll be okay. Maybe they just sit him down, let him watch for a few days. He'll be fine. Derek Jeter didn't get off to a great start to his Yankee career. I can think of 100 guys probably, or I could find 100 guys that got off to horrible starts. This is a very small sample size. In the middle of a season, 1 for 25 isn't great, but it's not going to show up like this. And as Drew said, he's chewing up AAA, chewed it up. There's no reason for him to play anywhere but Baltimore. How well he plays this year, again, he's not likely to put up Jeter-esque numbers or A-Rod numbers. Shouldn't mention A-Rod, but whatever. He doesn't have to. This team is good enough. Plays good defense. Do what Volpe did for the Yankees last year. Volpe wasn't the reason the Yankees finished 82-80. But he had his struggles, which, again, take a look at where Volpe is today compared to and again, a small sample size, I get it. Take a look at where he was a year ago compared to now, or even just at the end of last year. So, anyway, the NL Central, the Brewers, who I thought the bottom would fall out, and it still might. They're away at 11-6 with a revamped roster and scoring runs at a better clip than they have for a while. Scoring runs has been their Achilles heel for a while. But they're scoring some runs right now, and we'll see whether they have enough pitching and whether that hitting continues. The Cubs at 11-7, again, I think the Cubs, I don't have the thing in front of me right now. I think we'll pick the Cubs to win the division. And the Cards to finish in a wild card. I know Drew liked the Reds in this division, and I did not. Pirates starting to fall back to earth, 4-6 in their last 10. The Reds, this is the epitome of a young team, right? They're streaky. They were streaky last year, 4-6 now in their last 10 to fall to 9-9. We'll see whether this team is ready to compete in prime time here as summer comes along. Try to get too excited about any of this, right? Until Memorial Day hits, basically. Unless somebody really continues like the Astros to play horrendous baseball. I got to tell you, Danny, I don't know why. Why do we make that? Why do we make that comment? They have a real manager. Craig Counsell is right now the highest paid manager in the history of baseball. His numbers with the let me see if I can find it here. His numbers with the Brewers. You tell me how many managers have done as well as he's done over the last, let's say, 9 years. How many managers, again, remember something. Let me put a caveat in there. In a small market with a management that would not spend money to bring in good players at the trade deadline when he had good teams. The guy won 90 games 3 times while he was in Milwaukee. He won a division 3 times while he was in Milwaukee. He finished second 2 other times. Now, I know they didn't have great playoff success. And I like their manager. Remember, that guy sat at the side of Craig Counsell for all this time. And Craig Counsell has his new team a couple games behind his old team. I don't know why I don't see how you rip Craig Counsell. You can feel free to bring that up if you like. Drew, I'm going to get through the standings and I'll look at some of the numbers. Drew likes to put up the numbers for the leaders and whatnot, and I certainly don't mind taking a look at that. And Danny, I certainly respect your opinion for sure. I just would like to know what the impetus for it is, right? So I think he took undermanned teams to the playoffs 3 times is my point. Won 90 games with undermanned teams 3 times. I understand they flamed out in the playoffs each and every time. I get it. So it's a lot of guys, including Dave Roberts. Speaking of the Dodgers, they're 12-9, leading the West. They are 4-6 in their last 10. Not playing great baseball at the moment. Padres rebounding a bit, getting to 11-10. My dark horse here, the Giants starting to right the ship a little bit. They're 9-11. They have won their last couple. The Diamondbacks, everybody's darlings last year, are tied with the Giants and the Rockies. The Rockies are the Rockies. We only got a few minutes left. We only go a couple minutes over, but and Danny says Chris Taylor is terrible right now as well. Listen, I've never been a huge fan of Chris Taylor. I think he was more valuable when he was able to play multiple positions, and I don't know where they're playing him right now. Where are they playing him? Just strictly in left field, I think. He said an 0-29. We talked about Jackson Holiday. Danny's got a great point with Chris Taylor. And this is not a kid coming up and being overwhelmed. 35 at bats. His OPS is 195. It don't get worse than that, folks. Well, I guess it does. So Altuve one of my favorites, 388. Arcia, 377. And Mookie Betts, 369 in the batting race in baseball. Somebody next check the bridge race from Mark Mancini. The Pirates, listen, the Pirates will finish, 20 games under 500. We know that. By watching the games and looking beneath the numbers, that's why I asked about Holiday. I get it. Listen, I mean, it takes guys a little bit to get acclimated sometimes, Chris, and I certainly understand why you would ask the question. Anytime somebody's hitting 040, I think the question becomes, here, that's the thing, and that's kind of the rub when you get a guy who, and hey, unless you let him play through his issues, going back to AAA doesn't do him any good, because there have been a lot of guys, and I don't think Jackson Holliday is one of these guys. I think he's a real deal, but there's been a lot of guys that would be called quadruple A players, right? They just eat up everything to AAA and then just never can transition to the majors. I don't think he's that guy. Crystal says, happy birthday to Brett Maine. Bastard's only 56. He did play. Brett Maine played a long time. And I listen, and I interview a lot of those guys, and they're, people get excited about Hall of Famers and guys who hit 400, 500 home runs. There's a lot of guys who played a lot of years on the edges, right? Filling out rosters, being really good bench players. And I've interviewed a bunch of them that were really, some of the best interviews I had were guys who didn't play a lot in the majors. Buddy Biancalana will be one of those guys. Darrell Chaney, one of my favorite interviews I did was with Darrell Chaney, former utility player, backup shortstop and infielder, if you will, with the Reds back in the 70s, the Big Red Machine. Had a great interview with Darrell Chaney. They're the kind of guys I love to chat with. So, Drew, talking about pitchers and ERAs, these things get a little blown out of household names all. Crawford, Lopez, Blanco. Nobody saw that coming. Only 3 or 4 starts, obviously, or less. And here's the thing. You don't pitch a lot of innings in those starts, because let's look at Blanco, for instance, real quick. I guess we're going to go a little long, too. That's okay. Let me go back. Here's the thing. You're not pitching a lot of innings. You go out there and have one bad start, and that, if it happens soon, and that ERA is going to go through the roof. Go out there and give up 6 runs in 2 innings. Any of these guys, because Blanco, for as well as he's pitching, let's see how many starts he has. Blanco has 3 starts. He's pitched 21 innings. Actually, that's not bad. 7 innings a game today is really pretty good. 0.71 a whip to go with that 86 earned run average, by the way. I've got him on one of my fantasy leagues. I still haven't put him in the starting rotation. Danny. Okay. Listen, I'll agree with you 100% here, right? I don't like the way that whole thing went down. And I do remember we talked about it probably on the last show we did. I'm not happy with Counsell or the Cubs in the way that whole thing went down. I talked about it a lot, actually, when it happened. There used to be a rule, an unwritten rule, amongst managers. You didn't go out and lobby for a job that belonged to somebody else. Fire the guy and then negotiate, right? So I will understand. It isn't, but the comment shouldn't be they finally have a good manager or a manager, which you're assuming, I think, to saying a good manager in that context. If you didn't put the word good in, I apologize. But, maybe if you want to say loyal manager, then maybe that's one thing. Would you have felt the same way if you went to the Mets, who didn't have a manager at the same time? Would you still? I would have a much different opinion of Craig Counsell if he'd actually signed with the Mets, like it looked like he was going to. And I think David Ross had done a decent job with the Cubs, not a great job. And I get the Cubs' point. If they think they want a better manager than David Ross, and I will argue that Craig Counsell is a better manager than David Ross, you need to handle business a little differently than you did. It's a bad look, without a doubt. Anyway. Drew, we got to keep an eye on this, and let's look at these guys. I want to see what all these guys' ERA is at the All-Star break. Right? Fantasy update. We all suck. I can't get it going on any of my teams, man. This day-to-day thing is too hard, man. I got a job, and I got a podcast. You know how many times I don't get a pitcher in that's starting? Just, my mind only holds so much information. Anyway, we'll get there. Hopefully it doesn't take me, half the season like it did last year and I come up like a game short the last day of the season. Let's take a quick look at what's going on this weekend so we can get out of here. We'll take, we can take some more comments if you guys want to put a few more things up. We'll talk about them after I go through the weekend series, and we'll look at tonight's starters. Miami and Chicago, as we said, we had AJ Puck against James Taillon today. I believe I'd heard, I don't have the box score in front of me, but I believe it was 7-1. Danny might have put up earlier. The Dodgers will be at Cincinnati for the weekend. Tonight it's Tyler Anderson and Nick Lodolo. Boston and Pittsburgh, two teams that got off to a decent start and are starting to fall backwards. It hurts me to say. Boston's number one starter, Brian Bello, against Quinn Priester. The horrible White Sox against the hot Phillies, Garrett Crotchet against Spencer Turnbull. The floundering Houston Astros against the, middle of the road right now, Washington Nationals. Justin Verlander gets his first start of the year. I guess I got to get him off the DL pretty soon, against Mackenzie Gore. Tampa Bay will be at New York. Always an interesting series because Kevin Cash seems to always do something that picks off the Yankees. Tyler Alexander against Clark Schmidt tonight. Oakland at Cleveland. Cleveland should be able to continue, I think, their surprising start. Joe Boyle against Kristen McKenzie. The Rangers are at the Braves. We'll get maybe a little look at how good the Rangers really are. Everybody's favorite Ranger pitcher, which I always heard how much they improved their staff when they brought in Andrew Heaney. Anybody who's ever had Andrew Heaney on their team knows why I shake my head whenever I hear that. Anyway, Andrew Heaney will pitch against Chris Sale, the Braves' big offseason acquisition. Baltimore will face Kansas City, one of the surprise teams in the league, in the Royals. Dean Creamer against Alex Marsh to kick that series off. Detroit at Minnesota. Jack Flaherty at Joe Ryan versus Joe Ryan. The Brewers, Danny's favorite National League team, not named the Dodgers, where are they? I lost. Well, they're at the Cardinals. Freddie Peralta, one of the underrated pitchers, I think, in baseball. Freddie Peralta, when he's healthy, is really good against Kyle Gibson. The Mariners against the Rockies. The Mariners ought to get healthy. Emerson Hancock against Dakota Hudson. Seattle's too good to play under 500 baseball for very long. Their pitching staff is really good. Toronto will face San Diego on the road. Ariel Rodriguez against Matt Waldron. The Mets, or the Mess, as Drew likes to call them, are at the Dodgers. Interesting matchup, Danny. You get the Miracle Mets. And the Mets get their first look at Yamamoto tonight. And Sean Manaea will start for the Mets. Arizona Diamondbacks at San Francisco this weekend. Newly acquired Jordan Montgomery starts for the A's against Blake Snell. Two guys, interesting matchup of pitchers here. Two guys who pitched for, I shouldn't say pitched for, two guys who are part of, oh my God, Who's the super agent? Drew, help me out. Yeah. Drew's comment there for a second. Scott Boras. Jeez, good grief. Two Scott Boras agents, teams rather, slow down, Keith. Two Scott Boras clients who couldn't get signed by teams until late in the spring face off against one another in San Francisco tonight. Drew says, very weird seeing Cards listed this year with Gibson pitching. Yes, it is. It's like we're in a time tunnel. Boras, thank you, Drew. Thank you, Danny. You guys all saved my bacon. Shut the barn door after the horse had come home. Thank you for that. I guess you couldn't type any faster than that. I should be able to think faster than you can type. Anyway, let me just, I didn't look at any other news. Let's look real quick before I go, because I just don't feel like going just yet. It's a great thing about having your own podcast, and you can just go as long as you want. What's going on here? The Rockies coach posts video in cockpit, prompting FAA inquiry. Really? The Rockies, why don't you guys worry about filming batting practice and not the cockpit of the airplane you're flying on? Oh, my God. Kyle Hendricks will make his start against the Marlins Sunday. The team is concerned about his start to the year. He's 0-2, 34 years old, by the way, with a 12.71 ERA after 4 outings, including 7 home runs. He's been a workhorse. Ardalis Chapman, big no surprise here. The Pirates have brought on a problem, and when you have a problem, usually problems happen. He suspended 2 games and fined him the closed amounts for inappropriate actions during Monday's game. He was ejected by Edwin Moscato. I can't say it. Never mind. He was ejected by the plate umpire after giving up a 2-run double. He had evidently he said something the umpire did not like, and he was suspended 2 games. You can't imagine he said something anything too complimentary there, huh? We talked about the Red Sox starting to decline. Tyler O'Neill goes to the IL. DL, I did it again. You're not going to get me to I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to give in. And Rogers has a bone bruise as well. Jack Leiter had his major league debut for the, and I got to tell you something. One of the reasons you can't just look at the box scores, and he should have gotten out of here a lot easier. There was a fly ball that should have been caught in center field. I think 3 earned runs scored on it, and this should have been an easy out for any major leaguer. But anyway, he got off to a rough start. The number 2 overall selection in 2021. Another one of those up-and-coming Ranger farm systems. He lasted just 3 1/3 innings. He allowed 7 runs, 8 hits with 3 walks and 3 strikeouts. Again, part of this was because of this. Maybe it was windblown. I couldn't tell from the video that I was watching, but the center fielder took an interesting route to the ball. So this is why pitchers sometimes get a bad rap, right? Justin Verlander, as we said, gets his debut tonight for the Astros. And get out there, guys, and read the biography, the Lou Piniella story, because and when you get to the end of it, and he does some Louisms, he talks about the state of the game today. This was only a few years ago. And he agrees with almost everything I say. One of the few things he didn't was banning the ship. But his take on pitching and his take on the way the game is played today, very interesting. I swear to you, I didn't steal it from Lou Piniella. Please, Lou, don't sue me like Basement Bob over there suing me for my college football commentary, college football playoff commentary. Please, thank you. Guys, thanks for joining me. Thanks for your comments and your interactions. We like them a lot. Just a couple of program reminders. We'll have the Sunday Stream of Consciousness this Sunday. We'll have our normal round table with you guys. You know what probably is? Hold on one second. I wonder if it's because of it. Hang on. I probably turned the music up too loud. That's probably why it was fading. Join us Sunday with a stream of consciousness where you guys will get to do your normal interacting with me on all things sports. We'll have Jim Beringer in to talk about the NHL Stanley Cup chase. Next Wednesday, we'll have the college football huddle, college sports huddle. And next Friday, we'll be back with Keith Engle, one-on-one with Keith Engle at 9 a.m. Eastern. I'll have Tim Worley, former Georgia Bulldog and Pittsburgh Steeler running back. So that ought to be fun to do. Thank you, Danny. Great having you. Williams, sorry you're here at the end, Ralph. I hope everything's okay. I saw your note, and our viewers are all keeping you in their thoughts. And put a comment up if you want, but I'm going to have to sign off here. You guys have a great night. Ralph, I hope you're doing okay. And we'll see you later, guys. Have a good day.